Yo, welcome back to the Further Your Lifestyle podcast, conversations on lifestyle, passions, and hustles. My name's Chris. I am your host, and I'm super excited to be back here having the conversation with you. Episode 146 today, it's really cool because we're getting closer to that 150 milestone. Not that those numbers actually really mean anything, but it's also a nice reflection to know that, hey, we're still making progress. And one of the big topics of today, actually the whole topic of today, which will reflect on what I've just said about, getting to those numbers, they're a good reminder that we're making progress, is failure. And you're probably thinking, what? That doesn't make sense. But the whole topic of today is, if you ain't failing, you ain't learning. And this is going to be a bit of a deep and open and honest conversation with you all, because I think it's relevant to all of us. Now, do bear with me. I still do have a bit of a croak to my voice, still recovering from being unwell, but I want to get this consistency back to you, and I enjoy having these conversations. And look, sometimes things do not go as planned, right? We know that life is not linear. Everything that we do is not linear. There's always going to be those roller coasters. But for me, just to give you a bit of an understanding, failure is probably one of my biggest fears when it comes to creating or building something, especially when it's public, when it's out here in front of other people. And, like anyone, we want it to go well. We want it to work. But in hindsight, I've only attained the big wins, like achieved these things that I've wanted, what I would now call a new level of greatness or whatever. But it's only occurred through the thick and thin of the failures, meaning, by not wanting the failure, or I'm having to pivot, or I've had to adjust, or I've had to do things to make sure I'm being able to move forward. I've had to get uncomfortable. I've had to get out of my comfort zones. If they didn't happen, well, then the progress would never have happened in the first place either. So that's the catch-22. Look, failure is going to be there to motivate us. Failure is going to be there to be real. And look, sometimes things might not work out, but we have to be willing to get uncomfortable and have that, fight, and I guess meet failure in the face if we want to be able to get what we want. Now, this is something very normal that I talk about on the channel about, in terms of, having to make adjustments, having to pivot and try new things. But of course, it's all a little bit different when it becomes a reality and we actually have to do it. Sometimes we talk about it saying, oh yeah, I'll just do that when that occurs. But when it does occur, we don't realize that actually this is a lot harder than I first intended. Probably about 2 years ago, it might even be more than that now, it's all a bit of a blur, but during the pandemic, if anyone's been here on the channel, watching the podcast, or just watching my normal content for a while, you'll probably remember this. I was trying out a whole bunch of new content, and that was because we were in lockdown, we weren't able to go out, we weren't able to do other things, and one of these was exploring my newfound passion for Pokemon and opening Pokemon packs. And like many people did, we jumped in on the hype, and we had to figure it out as we go, because it was so much excitement, so many people were doing it, and finding our own space. The story time of all this, and we're getting straight into it here, the story time of all this is, as a kid, I didn't grow up with Pokemon. I wasn't not that it wasn't big for me, it wasn't big for our family. It wasn't something that it wasn't pushed, it wasn't something that we would have on all the time. So I never really experienced it, other than thinking that, oh, those guys have some really cool stuff. But 25 years later, and as a 30-plus-year-old adult, I wanted to reignite some of that curiosity. So I started to buy some packs, and I started to explore that interest. Now, when I created this whole space that I wanted to explore into, I created something called the Pokémon Fund. And it was an idea about building a collection that was self-sustaining, and to see if we can create a collection without having to break bank. Pretty cool idea, I thought. Now, I did this. I kicked it off, and I think I had released about 7 or 12 videos, and I was having a lot of fun. But with this came a lot of doubt, and there even came some hate, which was revealing. Like, it was a bit of a shock, a reality check. Whether it be because I'm a reseller and maybe I had no clue of what I was doing or what I was talking about, but that's just the point. We all start from zero. We all have to start from a vulnerable state. And long story short, due to the fear of failure, and due to the comments and the things that derailed my confidence to explore this and to have fun, I removed those videos and I stopped doing it, which sucks. I'm very disappointed in doing so now, in reflection and in hindsight. I know I shouldn't let people dictate my ability to be curious or to explore and to have fun, and neither should you. And that is the point of all this. So that is the topic of today. We're going to dive into it a bit more. If you ain't failing, you ain't learning. And less on me and more on you, but more, let's have a conversation about it. And through this episode, if you have a question or if you want to clarify or if you want to continue the conversation, jump over to the YouTube, or if you're here listening on the YouTube, and, drop a comment. Let's continue the conversation. You can reach out on socials as well. But, the conversation between you and me is always going to make this podcast that next level. All right, so now I would say, by looking at all this and reflecting on all this, did I fail? And I think I did, because I gave up on it. I let those things get the better of me. But the message is this: if you ain't failing, you aren't learning. And from giving that up and stepping away from it, I've been able to now take some learnings, take some reflection, and really start to, crawl back to understanding what needs to happen. And I think also in life, whether it's life in general, business, sport, whatever, if you're not having to make adjustments or pivot or overcome obstacles, then we're not really learning anyway. So what are my learnings from all this? What have I actually really discovered? Well, one is we shouldn't let people or others dictate our ability to be curious and explore and to have fun. And again, I understand saying these things is very easy, but we have to be willing to get uncomfortable. We have to be willing to break the ice. We have to be willing to tread our own paths and do things which other people aren't doing. Look, there's that statement where, at first they'll laugh at you, then they'll, admire you, and then they will look up to you, and then they'll want all your help. Look, I've totally butchered that statement, but there's a statement around that. And that's the point. When when the internet came out, people thought it was a fad. People think it was going to blow over. Here we are. We rely on the internet like as if we don't have it, it's the end of the world. So it becomes relevant and it becomes important. Not saying that everything that we do will be the most important thing in the world, but we do need to be willing to explore, be curious, and try new things. However, lesson number 2 is feedback is important. We need to make sure that we apply feedback in the right ways. We should take it and we should understand it, and we should see if there's something there of value, or if there's something there in a lost message. But also decide if there's nothing in that feedback at all. I'm not saying be defensive and don't let feedback come in, but when you do get comments, when you do get criticism, when you do get feedback, within all that, there is sometimes some level of truth. There could be something that we can take away from it, some silver linings or some reflections or some new realities. But sometimes it might just be, this is not actually really giving me feedback. It's just someone venting about something. Now that does happen, and sometimes it's hard to cut through all that noise, but you need to find a way to do it. I don't have the answer because I'm still dealing with it, right? And I'm trying to be better at it as well. Lesson number 3 is starting from zero. It's what we all have to do when we enter into a domain. And we all have to become that newbie. And it's scary stuff. It's horrible for some areas. Some areas it's really easy to do because it's a solo journey. But when it's a community space, when it's a public space, it's scary to get out there and put ourselves on the line, to be vulnerable. But we're all starting at zero at some point in something. Number 4 is find a community which you can enjoy each other and enjoy the journey together, and you can grow together. Now, from the Pokemon side, that community is huge and it's great, but it's also pretty toxic because there's new collectors, there's new fans, there's old collectors, and there's a connection between the two, but there's also a level of defense within that community too, because as more people come in, people want to make sure we're serious about it. People want to make sure, are you doing it? It's the same with the reselling and creating a business. Every year, this is not a stab at anyone, I see more and more resellers begin, and they say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then they realize maybe it's not as easy as people say it is on YouTube or whatever, right? I'm laughing because I talk about it on YouTube. But the reality is, it's not, once we do things, we actually realize this isn't for me, or it's not what we expected. And that is okay, right? And sometimes we'll realize there's bigger challenges. Now, when it comes to people pulling you down, there's a level of pulling down versus here's some feedback. And make sure we can understand that, and make sure the person giving you that feedback is very clear about it and being open, and they're not there to destroy you, but there to help you. So what is the overall outcome of all this? For me, I want to explore this itch again. And I kind of wanted to make a podcast about this a little bit because it's helping you understand that this is the reality for so many people. We have dreams, ambitions, things we want to scratch and test and try. But sometimes because we see all the fear, we see all the reasons why not to do it, that we don't do it. But there's also plenty of reasons to do it. So I want to dive into this further again. I want to give it another go. I want to give it more time, and I want to do it and enjoy the process. And look, it might not work out the way I envision it, but I don't want to give up on it just because someone thinks that I'm not good at it, or they think because I'm a reseller, I'm, ripping people off. Things like that. I have a passion for Pokemon. I love it. I've got Pokemon cards all around me. You can see I've got Pokemon stuff all around me. I really enjoy it. It's like a level of an escape. It's like how I love running as well. And there's always going to be haters that will hate, and hurt people will always hurt people. But that's got nothing to do with me or you. It's all their own issues. When we realize that, and again, I understand it's easier said than done, but when we realize that, we were able to break free and be able to move on. Now, more on the whole Pokemon fun stuff to come, and I'll be talking about that in a few videos and as I build that up and get ready for it and whatnot. But I've just been working through a whole bunch of different stuff, and this was that first part of it. I've already mentioned it to a few people, and I mentioned it on my live streams as well, that's coming back. So I'm just getting that into flow. So what is my message to you today? Well, my message is this. What is your itch you want to scratch? Is it a new hobby? Is it a new skill? Is it learning something different? Is it to get out of your current comfort zone? Is it a new career or a new job? Maybe you want to move interstate. Maybe you want to move international. What are all these different things that you want to explore, test, and try? What is it? And now, on the contrary, what are the things that are holding you back? Is it the fear of something? Is it the fear of what? Is it the doubt? Is it worried what others will think? Is it imposter syndrome? Is it you thinking you're not good enough? And then again, when we reflect, on the contrary again, what are the possibilities that this can all bring? A new joy, an escape from our busy lives, a new passion, a fun way to explore and, invite and new friends, to grow your personality, to open up new opportunities. Last week we spoke about, me being 4th year into the journey of taking a chance on myself. And when I started the podcast, it was not easy. And still today, there's some things and plenty of things I struggle with all the time. And I have to work on overcoming those things to bring you the best message that I can. And also to challenge myself that, am I actually valid enough to share this? That's what I struggle with. Because at the end of the day, we only know what we know. Thus, I can only share to the point of what I know. I can't share you something that I haven't done because I haven't achieved it, so I don't have the understanding of it. However, if we only did what was natural to us and what we could only know, and we only did what we knew and we didn't explore on expanding that knowledge, well, we wouldn't have much to show and it would be pretty boring. We all have to learn. That is the point here. We all have to learn and we all have to do things outside of our comforts in order to grow. Some of that can be really intense, or we can do it over time and take our time. And that's how we further our lifestyles. That's how we take our lives and our lifestyles and make them better. Now, I may or may not have something to add value to you. Like I may have something or I may not have something to add value to you or someone. Just like I can gain value from others, be it you, a listener, or someone who maybe I look to as a mentor. We all have something to give. And sometimes we have stuff that we will say that might not be relevant to other people because we're different points or different parts of our timeline in our journey, right? So there's plenty of times where, and I'll be honest, that because someone is behind me or younger than me, maybe they've said something and I've deflected it because I'm like, oh, you don't know anything. But just because someone's younger doesn't mean they haven't got the experience, doesn't mean they haven't experienced what you're going through. Everyone has different circumstances. Everyone has a different journey and have been on a different journey. So it's always important to listen to things, hear what they're saying, and understand and be open and being willing to grow yourself. Now, I'll finish on this. Don't be bound by what you know based on the assumption everyone else knows it or everyone else doesn't want to know it. If you ever have had a question, there is a guarantee that someone else is also looking for the answer to it. And maybe they have just been too scared to ask. That's the whole premise, the whole purpose of this episode is we should not crawl back into ourselves, but be willing to be asking the questions. And we should not be going through with assumptions through life expecting that people already know this or people don't want to know this, because the reality is we all have scratches that we want to itch. We all have problems we need to solve. We all have curiosities that we want to explore, but we get tied down because of all our insecurities or society's pressures or whatever it is. We need to start to break free of that, right? And I think the best way we can do that is start to have a conversation about it. What are the things that you want to scratch this year? What are the things that you want to do? Here I am letting you know what I'm going to be doing, and I talk about all the things that I'm doing anyway on the channel, but specifically, those things, it was a bad experience. I felt vulnerable, I felt destroyed, and it wasn't a really nice thing, so I got rid of that content. But I realized on reflection, it's like, how dare someone tell me that I cannot do it because they have no knowledge of what my intentions are or don't understand where I'm coming from. And they've got their own issues to deal with. So let's do this together. Find something that you want to scratch. Tell me what it is in the comments below, and let's go and explore it. I'm not going to be, itching it away for you or scratching it either, but I will challenge you. I will encourage you, and I will try and support you the best way I can and give you that, motivation. And that's why I do these episodes, to help people, to inspire others to further their lifestyles, right? That's what we're here to discuss. That's what we're here to do. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like on the YouTubes. Hit subscribe if you're here on the YouTube. If you're here listening, make sure you review the podcast. Make sure you give it a rating. Make sure if you really did enjoy it, give it a share to someone who needs to hear this. I'm not here to say you have to do this, but I think if you gain value from this, if you're actually attaining something from these conversations, then I think it's worth giving it a thumbs up, giving it a share, and making sure other people know about it. Really do appreciate you being here. It's been a bit of a slow start to the year, but we're back. We're getting into routine, and I'm excited to be able to continue to have these conversations with you. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you have a wonderful day. Appreciate you. Cheers.